Welcome to Syntax. Today we've got some tips and advice that we wish we knew sooner. Scott and I have been around the block. We've been in this industry long enough. We've seen many things, trends come and go. And I feel like we are wise. You know, I'm starting to get a little bit gray in my beard.
Yeah.
I think we have a little bit of wisdom to see it. So we're going to go through and give you 13 web development tips, advice that we wish we knew sooner as we go through our careers. How you doing, Scott?
Oh man, I'm doing good. I got a little bit of gray in the beard, but no gray up top just yet. But my body's feeling it. I've decided to enter the Red Bull BC1 qualifier, which is like the Breaking World Championships, and there's a qualifier in Denver, and I don't anticipate not only not making it through, but not making it through the U.S. finals even. But you know what? Like, it's not the West U.S. qualifier is not often in Denver. It's, often in California or wherever. So it's like, you know what? It's here. It's this Thursday. I'm going to take the opportunity to do it. And I'm just going to try my best. And who knows how far I'll get at this advanced age of 38. This might be one of my last chances to do something like this. But I was
going to ask that. Like, at what point do you stop breakdancing?
Oh, me never. But like, competitively there are people who break into 50s and 40s and stuff like that. Not competitively, but they just do it because you can pare it down to what you're doing. You can always do less intense things where you're not spinning around and stuff like that. But I feel it in my body, Wes. On Thursday for practicing, I ripped an entire quarter-size callus off my hand entirely. So I have a giant hole in my hand right now, which is a perfect time to do that right before a big competition.
Oh, rough.
So my body is not stoked about it, but yeah, this is my chance, right? This is my one chance. And you know what? You have many chances to fix your bugs, but you should get those done fast. You should fix them fast. You shouldn't take you many chances, but let's say you fix a bug and you mark it as resolved in your Sentry. Well, Sentry's going to let you know if you... Sentry's going to let you know if it's not actually fixed and if you get a second chance to fix that bug. And hopefully it doesn't take you a third time, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it takes you a third or fourth time. You think, I finally got it this time. But Sentry lets you know, did it get, is it a regression? Did this bug that you had marked is fixed? Now is this broken again in a new build? It can keep track of all your builds and all that stuff like that. So check it out.
That feature. Because, sorry, I'm cutting off your ad read here, but I like that feature because sometimes you have those really weird ones where you're like, what is causing that? And you got the breadcrumbs up to happening in it, and you think I think I know what happened here, and you fix it, and you send it off into the sun, and you click on resolve, and you hope you never see it again. But sometimes you're wrong about that, and it comes back, and they say if you love something, you set it free.
Yes, but you set that bug free. It was actually you know what is very funny? There's that meme going around that clearing error code does not repair car. There's a sticker on a car diagnosis tool. I posted a photo of my Sentry and it says marking resolved does not fix the bug because it doesn't often fix the bug. So yeah. All right, check it out on sentry.io/syntax. Sign up and get 2 months for free. Let's get into it. Here are 13 web development tips we wish that we knew sooner. Number one is that no one is all knowing. We often have this idea of other developers. Maybe it's people that we work with, people that we see online, people that are on YouTube, people that we think know everything. But in reality, this industry just has too much. There's too much. There's too many niches within this. There's too many paths that you can go down, whether it's your front end, you're a CSS completionist, you're a Ruby person, you're a Go person, you're a HTML guru, accessibility, JavaScript, UI, React, Svelte, all this stuff. There's too dang much to know in this industry to know it all. Nobody knows it all. And because of that, we often hear a lot of things. And, through the course of doing this podcast, we've gotten a lot of comments in the potluck question form about imposter syndrome. I have imposter syndrome. I feel like I don't, I'm not at the same level as my coworkers, or I'm not at the correct level for this job. But at the end of the day, nobody knows it all. Nobody is that brilliant, except for a small handful of 10x developers. And we're all just figuring out as much as we need to learn at any given point to complete our work and our jobs to the best degree that we can.
Exactly. I think when you see people with the confidence in knowing what they have, what that comes from is enough experience where they think they can figure it out. I specifically remember in my career sort of getting over that hump of like, ooh, this is a very hard problem. I might not be able to do it, to with enough time and being able to talk to others. I think that I can eventually figure out how to sort of tackle this type of thing.
Yeah.
Next one, you will often see developers with extremely strong opinions, and you might look at them and say, hey, that person is super smart. But almost always when people are extremely opinionated and aggressive against something, they are either masking their skills, their own skills, because they've done something some way their entire life and they can't possibly fathom why you would do something another way. They're doing it to make themselves look smarter. I saw this quite a bit when I was teaching a boot camp. People would poo-poo certain technology stacks because they thought it made them look like they knew what they were talking about. Or they're just a straight up ace-hole. You see that a lot as well. People just are just not nice people. So whenever you see somebody with extremely strong opinion, don't think, oh, I must follow exactly that opinion. Take their advice. It probably is good advice, but just know that there's ebbs and flows, there's come and goes with web development, and they are probably being very aggressive about their opinion for one of those reasons.
Yeah, that's such a huge thing. I do think oftentimes, too many times in this world, we look at people who are the loudest and we say, that person knows what they're talking about. They are loud. They are very committed to their bit. They are so committed to their bit. But oftentimes, like, you know, people who are that committed to their strong opinions, like you said, they could also be insecure. They could also be insecure that they don't know these things. I don't know Svelte, so therefore I'm going to say Svelte sucks just because I don't know it, you know? And I don't want to act like I don't know it, so I'm going to act like I'm better than it or I'm above it. And I think that's often like a big time thing that people do. They don't even just straight up try it. So yeah, people with strong opinions are crazy.
I got into a fight with somebody on Reddit last week where I posted a video about using display grid to overlap elements.
Yeah, it's a great technique.
Yeah, and he went off on this like rant about awful for performance and X, Y, and Z, and I was like, it's not awful for performance. I checked it. It's 60 frames a second, and it paints once when the page loads, and all these things, and like I was getting kind of upset because like this guy was being really aggressive, and then I looked him up and like, you know, just. I looked up their Reddit history, just like 18 years of being an ace-hole online, you know, and there's probably some sort of personality disorder down the tube there somewhere, but holy smokes.
The best thing you can do in Reddit is look at somebody's post history, because if they're arguing with you about the most mundane things or like just trying to start there are people who, like you said, their entire post history is just exhausting, starting arguments over nothing for no reason whatsoever. There's a lot of people like that on Twitter too, and you know what I do? I give them the old mute those folks. I use the mute very generously. If I see too much of anything on Twitter, I'm mute. I do not care about your opinions. Too strong for me.
Yeah, and it's also like, the unfortunate thing with social media is that these extremely strong opinions, it does super well, you know?
It does super well. Yes.
And the like even when I posted that CSS grid thing, I intentionally said it's almost always better to use this over absolute. And I intentionally was very opinionated about that because I wanted it to do well. But like, do I use absolute positioning? Absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
No, nothing.
No.
Absolutely.
Oh, you know what, Wes? We both mentioned we're a little without sleep today. No, I did not. I didn't clock that at all. So I'm very sorry about that. By the way, your grid technique, for people who who didn't watch that video where you overlay two things with the grid areas,
Yep.
that technique is the single best technique for transitioning between two things. Because if you position absolute and then transition between two things, you then have to worry about their heights. You have to worry about position relative to the container and then setting the heights. Because when you go position absolute on something to then fade in something else, so that way you don't get things popping in and out, it messes with the position and display. So if,
snaps up.
So
are you talking about like the like transition, the new transition API? What's that called?
No, just in
general. You're fading something out, fading something in.
Yes, and specifically, I wrote a wrapper that all it does is put those things in a grid column one just to do the transition. Like that. That's all it does is put the wrapper.
I'm gonna need That's a video right there. I'm gonna need a video from you on that. There.
Got it.
Hot tip.
Yeah.
A Scott tip.
Yes, a Scott.
Wait, why don't you call them Scott tips?
What?
Scott tips.
Oh, that's good. No, that's way better.
Yeah.
That's why we got
Scott
you.
Tip.
Yeah. Wes the branding man for sure.
I can't believe we're 7 years in and we've never discovered a Scott tip.
Yes, I know.
All right.
Good.
What else we got from? What other tips do you have?
Yeah, using tools to help you is not a bad thing. A lot of times people will talk about, I did this straight up like raw CSS or raw HTML or raw JavaScript or whatever. I did this completely by myself with no help. I didn't use any stinking AI to build this. I wrote it myself. And like sometimes you can move faster with tools. Now, obviously there's caveats there. If you're building something that's long-term, you want some artisan code, you want some stuff that you know exactly is going to be super performant, it's going to be super clean and whatever, but it depends on what the job is. And sometimes you need to get the job done, and sometimes tools can help you. There's so many tools out there. And we've seen this all the time throughout the history of programming in general. There's always going to be people grumping about tools. When SAAS came on the scene, there was a huge I don't need nesting, but I'm sure they're using nesting now that it's in the browser, or variables even. I don't need variables. They're in the browser now and they're incredible. You got to use them. So tools help you. Now, obviously there's, nuance there. Don't spend a lot of money on tools where you're just spending money on tools and not being productive and things like that, or, death by 1,000 services, etc. But tools can help.
When you're learning a new technology, whether it's a new piece of CSS, a new server-side framework, something like that, you approach it with a mixed dose of skepticism and open-mindedness, because especially the TikTok comments sometimes when you post about something new is just the most awful people who think that we should just wrap it up and stick with absolutely everything. Or just people not understanding that there are situations where this would really, really help you. But then on the flip side is don't absolutely grab every single new piece of technology and think it's going to be amazing. Give a little bit of skepticism. What about performance with this? Is this going to be an issue? Why would I possibly need this? I find that people who are sort of on both sides, trying to understand the story, are the healthiest in their learning journey.
I like the way you said, understand the story. Things exist for a reason, and people like things for a reason. Sure. Hype trains can get out of control where people are going to act like something like Zod is going to, save their life in some sort of way. But in reality, these things are just solving a problem. And sometimes they're solving a problem that you don't have. So you could look at that and say, why would I need this? Therefore, I think this bad. I don't need it, therefore bad. It's that's not how it works. Maybe I just don't need it. Or maybe it is bad.
Just because you've never had that problem doesn't mean that other people don't have that problem. I posted about subgrid on TikTok the other day, and I had so many people, half the comments were, so it's just tables? It's not just tables.
Not just tables.
Of course not. If it was just tables, then it would be that. And then the other half of the comments were, I just stick with Flexbox. And it's not. It does something totally different than Flexbox. And of course, you can use Flexbox for some things, and they have their own use cases. But it makes me so frustrated where people are like, oh, that was a mistake. that looks like something we don't need. We took the smartest minds of web development, put them on for years developing this specification, and they totally missed that we had tables already.
I just threw a GIF in the show notes. It's just Tim Robinson yelling tables. Yeah, I know. I feel you, man. It's wild about that, how people, they take those approaches. And I didn't realize that TikTok was going to be like one of the most toxic commented places on the planet.
Yeah, it's because it's like a drive-by. It's just drive-by whatever. And like the snarky comments get rewarded, which honestly I don't mind, because the more snarky the comments, the better the video does. But it's amazing how many people are I think it's that they're scared that things are changing and they have to keep learning. This stuff is changing very fast right now, and their livelihood is at stake if they do not keep up, and that there's a bit of like fight or flight there, I think.
Yeah, it often comes down to either insecurity or tribalism around your tools, right? My tools are the best tools because they work for me, and therefore other tools are bad tools. Here's one that I really like, is that things, and this is very personal to me, but I'm sure to other people as well, things make more sense the more you actually use them. And that goes along with the last one. But in reality, like sometimes I look at some tech and it on surface feels like it's too much, or it's too verbose, or maybe again it's solving a problem that either I don't have or I didn't know I had. And the more I try it, the more I will understand it. And even in terms of like anything from JavaScript just straight up to SQL or any of these things, the more you work with them, the more you won't even think about it. It's just going to become second nature. There was points in my career when I was learning ActionScript, and I was just like, I expect it to work this specific way. And it's not. And I'm like, why doesn't it work this way? This thing is so hard. And now if I were to look back at that code, I would be like, why in the world would I have ever expected this variable to exist? I'm defining it in the function. Why would I expect it to exist outside the function? But it's just one of those things. When you learn things, at first, it all looks foreign. Just like the first time you go into somebody's house, you don't know where anything is. And then the second time you're there, you know a little bit more. Or if you live there, now you have every square inch of the thing memorized. You know all the baseboards, you know all the rooms, you know everything, you know all the imperfections and all that stuff. So the more you spend time in things, the more you're going to understand them.
I feel like on that same note, I have not understood the technology or not understood the use of it. And the more I do this, I realize like even like CSS modules, I'm feeling that right now. We had a question the other day of like, why don't you like CSS module? And I was looking at that question. I was like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I just didn't understand. And then I was writing some code the other day. I go, I kind of see it. I think I might have been wrong about this,
Really?
And and it was just because I had not hit that situation where I had wanted it. I think, I'm still out, but I'm open to being wrong about that type of thing. Is maybe I just don't understand the use case for this type of thing. The people are not making these things because.
Yeah. Well, I think that leads really nicely into the willingness to change your mind is a strong skill. Maybe you were wrong because you didn't totally understand it at first, because that is exactly that. Be open to being wrong. Know that you can be wrong. And oftentimes you are wrong. I've been wrong 10,000 times. If you go back and listen to the history of this podcast, I'm sure I'd say some stuff that I was very wrong about over and over again. So that's part of growth. You should look at things you thought in the past and be like, what was I thinking? Because that is a sign of personal growth.
I also, when I'm like trying new things and I'm, like you said, you're frustrated, it doesn't work in a certain way, I often think, is this so different because somebody, like, do I really need to take a step back? Like you look at the effect library. There's obviously very smart people that are building that type of thing. And I look at it and I go, that doesn't make sense to me. Or that is a totally different way of coding my applications. I'm not sure. But I don't I don't write that off. As soon as I saw it, I go, I'm not writing that off because I think that people are thinking in different ways to approach their problems, and maybe I need to think that way as well.
Yeah. Big skill.
Doing is better than reading or watching. And this is hard for people like me and Scott who build courses. We have a podcast, and you can get stuck in this hole of trying to consume and research when at the end of the day, absolutely nothing beats just going off and building something. You really need to start writing the code. There's no better way to get better in your job than to simply just build things.
Yeah, that's so true. And because you can look at something and think you understand it. You can look at something or watch a tutorial and follow along with the tutorial and think you understand it. But you're on the happy path there. You're on the everything is hunky-dory because I got a definitive map of what I'm doing. But the moment that all of a sudden you're like, well, now I got to go slightly to the left here, slightly to the right, and you're, oh, wait a second. Where am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? And if you just start exploring, you get a better lay of the land here. I'm going metaphor crazy today. But you're understanding specifically about like all the little edges, all the little wrinkles, the things that you don't hit in the happy path. And that is where you truly pick up like what you can do, what you can't do, where are the boundaries, what does not work. And to me personally, before reading, every inch of the docs, I will work on something, I'll hit an edge, and then I'll look at the docs to find that edge. And that's a much better way for me personally to explore a topic than just read top to bottom, watch a video, whatever, because you're not going to hit those edges unless you hit them in a real world scenario.
That's the same reason why CSS, like spec authors, want you to try the things in the browser as soon as they have a shipped version, because the people that write the spec for Popover or a bunch of the new CSS, they have to just sit there and think about how this works because they can't actually build with it. And then they say, please build things with it so that before the spec is finalized, we know those edges that you're hitting.
Yeah, seriously.
Asking questions is good. I can't tell you, both from like a rubber duck debugging standpoint, as well as different people's approaches to problem solving, how important asking questions is. So whether you are on Twitter, whether you're in a Discord, whether you're on like a Stack Overflow, being able to say, this is my problem, this is what I've tried, why is this broken, or how should I approach this is invaluable, because the rubber duck debugging point is often you'll fix your problem as you type out the question and explain what you've done. It forces you to think through the steps. And often I'll find myself going, oh, I know what I did there. But also just sometimes people will follow up with questions of like, why are you even doing that way? Or what's wrong with X, Y, and Z? And you go, oh, that's a great. I'm so glad somebody has a different perspective than I do.
Yeah. Asking questions is goated. I was never the type of student that would ask questions in class, in high school or college or anything. I'm not a hand raiser. So for me, like, it is tough in social situations to ask questions of a group and things like that. But it is a superpower. And I admire the people who are able to ask questions, because those people, their brains are way more engaged. They're like thinking of the edges. They're looking for these issues, and they're trying to get answers themselves. It is a monstrous skill to build up and grow. And that's why I'm thankful for a couple of things. I'm thankful for, chat rooms, IRC. That is, some IRC rooms could be a little hostile, but asking questions, as long as you were open to them, is always, depends on how you're asking these questions. You can't just be like, this sucks, why is it like this? That was a surefire way to get like a little timeout in the IRC room or something like that. But I personally, it's something I've been using ChatGPT and Claude for, because you do have to be a little careful there in terms of like what the answer is. You do have to back it up, but you can ask LLMs to say like, I have this bit of contextual knowledge. I see other people are doing it this way. What am I missing? And the types of things, LLMs can give you some good answers sometimes on that stuff. Sometimes I'll say, is this a thing that people actually do? Yes, it's a thing that people actually do. People actually implement auth this way for these reasons. People do this for this reason and because of that. And that, even if that is like, you shouldn't take that obviously at its word. It's a LLM. You should go verify that. But it's good for that initial question, that initial verification. If there's one thing that I really miss about working in an office is asking my desk mate a question about my code or a question in general, something that I've spent an hour bashing my head against. Look at this. What's wrong with this? Oh, you spelled import wrong. I had one of those the other day. Oh man, Wes, you think that you're immune to that kind of stuff. And I was just, man, it was like a 1-letter swap. My dyslexia killed me on that one.
Oh man.
It was a 1-letter swap. And for some reason, my IDE was not giving me a red squiggly. And I'm just pulling my hair out. Why is this not working? You goofed up the word.
Yeah, I often find that as well, where the tools didn't catch it. And I think like, man, I love these tools because those little head bashing moments are certainly a lot less than they were 10 years ago.
Yes.
Pasting that stuff into the AI chat it's really good at catching those types of things.
So good.
Do you notice anything weird about this? Paste. Oh, okay. Totally didn't.
I was debugging our desktop app. And, Apple logs are just these massive dumps of who knows what. And I was just like, where in this massive dump of questionable logs is something that is going wrong here? And then it found it for me. I was just like, yes, thank you.
That's amazing. Love that.
Here's one that I think is oddly controversial, which I don't understand, is everyone doesn't learn the same way. It's so funny. I see people who make their whole thing like learning styles don't exist. That's like their entire brand, right?
Yeah.
Is learning styles don't exist. And let me tell you, I do not learn the same way as a lot of people. I can't read a blog post. I can read source code and learn. I can't read a blog post. I can't read like docs straight up and learn well. Like we mentioned before, getting my hands dirty is a good way for me to learn, but also listening. Our brains exist in a different way. We all have different strengths, whether that's, if you ever got an IQ test done, you would know that there's, your short-term memory, your long-term memory, your auditory, your visual, your all these things. There's all these different ways that our brains have different strengths of. And knowing, at least identifying, being able to say, hey, this is a little bit easier for me to learn this way. I'm going to actually stick in that method of learning things because it is way more advantageous and time safe for me to, instead of bashing my head against this giant blog post to understand the thing, to select it all and say, read it for me. That's a good way to understand. So just pay attention to making sure that you know exactly like what is going on when you're learning things.
Yeah, what is my learning style is probably something that is well worth digging into. A lot of people love watching tutorials, right? And I make tutorials, but do I watch them? Absolutely not. It's just not my learning style. You know what my learning style is that I figured out the other day, Scott?
What's that?
The Balkan breakfast. Do you know what this is?
I've never heard of this.
So Balkan breakfast is, I saw this TikTok where you sit down with like peppers and sausage and cheese and toast and eggs and lettuce and a cucumber, just whole versions. And you just like take a bite, grab something else, take a bite, grab something else, take a bite. And it's wild because it's like, you don't like cut and prepare something. You're just grabbing and taking bites out of everything. And then at a certain point you've had breakfast. And I thought like, that's how I learn is like, I'm just view source, GitHub,
sample
blog post, I'm just like, even when I'm cooking as well, my wife is just like, are you following a recipe? I was like, I read 6 and I'm just going to go for it. I don't sit there and exactly follow a recipe. I'm simply just dipping into 1,000 different things. And I go, I think I get it. I think I understand how to go ahead.
Yeah. Oh man, I gotta tell you, one time, this is actually a funny story. There's a company attempting to acquire Level Up Tutorials at one point, and the person I was interviewing with it about it was like asking me. I was right about to give my talk, which was about how I learn things quickly, and part of that talk was identifying your learning styles. So they were asking me a little bit about my talk because they just wanted to get to know me. It was like a CTO of some company, and I'm not going to identify whom, but I was telling them about this talk. I was telling them, it's about, how you identify your learning styles and whatever. And before I even said that, he was like, oh, that's so cool. I'm writing a book about learning styles right now. I'm like, oh, really? Tell me about your book. I'm like thinking we got a connection here. Let's explore this. And he's like, yeah, my whole premise of my book is that learning styles don't exist and everyone learns the same way. And I was just like, oh boy, you are not going to like my talk. This is not going in the right direction I thought I would. It was a early red flag about that entire conversation.
Oh, that's good. One hot take I have here is you don't need a SAAS for everything. And often I feel like a lot of people who are learning or doing something from scratch these days are piecing together 8 different SAASes, and like the big one, and you'll love this one, is auth, right? Like you can write your own auth, and if you need those features, yes, of course you can move to that type of thing, but you will die a horrible death at the helm of MAUs, monthly active users. So like it's easy to grab a whole bunch of these services and piece them together to build your application. But what you don't know is that it will get extremely expensive. These services are drug dealers. And as soon as you get to any sort of scale, you are going to be very expensive. Of course, they're very handy and things like that. But try to build it without those services at first, and you will learn a lot and save a ton of money.
Yeah. Not everything needs a service. I know people say, I would rather have my day back. That's like a crazy thing to me that people say on Twitter. It's like, I would rather not waste a day on auth. Waste a day? Bro, I waste days on crazy things. And my app is still like existing and still growing. You could waste a day on building your own auth to save yourself X amount of dollars in long term. My least favorite Twitter posts by far are the ones that are like, I launched in 1 week and here's the list of 20 services that I used. I used this for this and this for... I'm just like, good luck. Because sure, you might make enough money here and there or whatever, but like the moment you get real users, that could come back to bite you. Or guess what? You're going to get a rug pull somewhere. You sign up, you get your data spread out amongst 100 different services, some of which at some point, what was it? Was it PlanetScale that did a rug pull? Yeah. That at some point they'll say, oh yeah, by the way, that thing that we were giving you for free for 100 users, now for 100 users, you're going to have to pay $19 a month. All right, $19 a month. That's just one more slash, right? And that's how it goes. There are so many things that people spend money on that I find to be shocking. I would much rather have that $20 a month in my pocket and spend a day of my time doing authentication.
Yeah, no kidding. It's I saw Levels.io describe it as a VC pump and dump, where the first couple of years, absolutely everything is free, and then once the VCs want their money back, things start getting a lot more expensive. And at that point, it's too hard to move off of that type of thing. It's just, I'll tell you right now, Vimeo twice the price on me, and I got to move off of Vimeo now, and Render jacked the price on me. I think it's like doubled the price, something like that. I forget what it was, but that price on that went way up. And I thought, maybe I should have been doing my own services. And what I do is I go, I'm just going to keep paying it because I don't feel like moving off of that thing. And they realize that.
Yeah.
That's even like Bluehost. I have had a Bluehost for like 15 years, and that was like the last holdout of this is affordable. You can host as many websites on you want it. And I got an email the other day being like, we're going to start charging you because you have too much stuff on there, by the gigabyte. And I had they only give you 20 gigs now because they realize people are hosting 30,000 websites on a $8 a month plan.
You know what, Wes, is like, Man, people don't get it either. I don't know if it's newer developers or what, but there was like some comments in some regard on like a Coolify thing we did about a VPS. And somebody was like, yeah, sure, it's $5 a month now, but what happens when you get an influx of a massive amount of users? Well, let me tell you, the price does not all of a sudden go up. Your thing will either go down or you'll adjust it yourself because that's how the cloud services work, right? Especially like the ones that like they don't set a limit for how much you can spend with them. They'll say, "Oh wait, you got a massive influx of users. All right, pay up. Time to pay up." That doesn't happen if you own your own stuff or whatever. And granted, yes, there are benefits to all these things. A lot of the services have real benefits, but at the end of the day, you're paying for it.
Yeah, like on the flip side, a lot of businesses would rather have their website stay up and pay a whole bunch of money. You know, Kanye West talks about your clothing brand.
Totally.
You kind of rather your site stay up so you can capture that traffic versus
unless nobody buys anything and then you get charged for it.
then you're pooch. So it's a delicate dance for sure. And I'm obviously a big user of these different SAASes, but you got to be careful with what you're doing.
Measured approach. Know what you're getting into.
Yeah. Along those lines is you don't need to worry about scale for your 3 users. Just know that if you do need to scale up, you likely can. You will probably see it coming. If you do get a crazy influx of users, maybe you should have something in place. Like, for example, I'm on Render. If I wanted to, I could increase the number of, you can even have them auto scale as well. So I have like some hard limits in there where at a minimum I have 2 servers running, but at a maximum I have 5. So you can scale up to if you do need that type of thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Or even like DigitalOcean, worst case, you can simply just power it down, drag the amount of memory and CPUs, and then start it back up again. And it'll be expensive, but at least you can get up and running so you can figure out load balancing.
Yeah,
later.
It won't be expensive if you're on Hetzner because holy cow, they give you a lot for your money.
Oh yeah, I need to get a Hetzner
account. I run about 100 things on my like $4 a month Hetzner ARM server, and it is like it's not sweating it at all. It is wild how many things I just throw into this. Oh, I need a backend? Let me just install Pocket Base in 1 second.
Yeah.
Alongside of my 800 other Pocket Base installations.
I am dying. I've had the spool of fiber on the side of my house for 2 months now. And every day I check if they haven't turned it on yet. But as soon as they turn it on, like I'm kind of tempted to just rack a little server in my basement. Like I have a home server, but like maybe something that has like an ARM chip in it. Yeah, I wonder how much you could do, because once I have like a 3 gig upload, you could I did quite a bit on my 50 megabit upload when I was doing my receipt printer thing. It ran all night, no problems, on a next dev server.
Yeah. Here's a good one. Learning the fundamentals will always pay off. Sometimes the fundamentals do feel like they are too heavy, or that it's too in the weeds, or it's too things that you don't have to worry about. I'm using a framework. Why would I care about how events work in the DOM? I just write my on click and it works, But understanding how it all works, understanding what exactly is going on in a use effect, understanding what exactly is going on in the browser with the APIs, with the paint and all that thing, that can save you a ton of time down the line. Anytime you have an issue with anything, you might be able to reach for a lighter solution. You might be able to debug it faster. You might just generally understand what the heck you're doing and why you're doing it. So that way, when you are doing it, what you're actually doing, right? That's such an important thing that I think people they follow tutorials, they do whatever. They don't learn exactly what's going on. And it's important to know what is going on in your application. How does hydration work? How does authentication work? How do forms work? All these things. There's just an infinite amount of things. Dive in.
Know how these things work, but then use a framework or library to do it. Is the approach, right? Like one I see a lot is anytime I post anything with CSS, people say, "Oh, can Tailwind do that?" And I think, yes, of course Tailwind can do that. It's CSS. Like I honestly think there's some people that don't understand that Tailwind is CSS. It's just Adam wrote it for you instead of you writing it. Like it's still CSS at the end of the day. So it can do, like, obviously there's some spots it can't do specific stuff, whatever. But like, yes, of course it can do it. It's CSS. At the end of the day, it's not its own styling language.
And there's nothing stopping you from writing CSS with it. You know, you don't have to use the utility classes for everything. You can use actual CSS. People get mad when I say that. So you can use CSS.
So you even use actual CSS.
Well, when I say actual CSS, I mean like you're writing properties
raw
and values.
Dog and
you're
CSS,
not writing utility classes. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that as a put down. I'm going to say
no. Like actually writing the CSS is what you mean. Working in public will make you more hireable. This is huge. So if you are building something, whether you're throwing the code up on GitHub, publishing an NPM library, writing a blog post about the problems that you hit, simply just sharing what you're doing in whatever medium you find most comfortable will make you so much more hireable. It will put you in the community. It will attract others who need to talk things through you. Like, one of my biggest assets is having a Twitter account. And the reason I have that is because I work in public. I share what I'm doing. I ask lots of questions. And it's so great because you get lots of really smart people coming in, chiming in. People who are experts in whatever thing you're working on will swoop in and provide you a whole bunch of insights for that. So just being out there working in public as much as you possibly can is very good. I realize a lot of people can't because they're working on a job and your job won't let you do that, but it's really nice if you can. Yeah,
but even if you're not getting questions or answers from a bunch of people, on Twitter or whatever, I can tell you from being on both sides of the hiring table, every interview I've been on, the interviewers have been impressed that I had a YouTube channel. Now, you don't have to have a YouTube channel, but I can tell you we've looked at a lot of applicants, and the people who have an active blog or an active YouTube channel, or they're posting these things, they're inherently more desirable candidate because you can tell they care. Now, I get it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort, but it could simply be just writing down the thing that you figured out today. And that's how I did Level Up tutorials. It was like, here's what I learned about WordPress today. All right, here's what I learned about Drupal today. And I can't tell you how from the inception of that channel, every job interview I had after that, people talked about the YouTube channel in the interview and were stoked about it. Yes, it definitely helps. And it could get questions going too, right? You do a blog post on a specific topic in CSS, and maybe the interviewer isn't versed in that. They might even ask you about that specific thing. And that's an opportunity to flex some knowledge and show that you have some specialized knowledge that these people might want. You have to make yourself stand out. We are in a job market nowadays that is not as simple as I graduated from boot camp, give me job. Like, that's how it was in the past, and we're not there anymore. You need to make yourself stand out in some kind of way. Another one here is, this is like a career one. You can interview for a job without accepting an offer. If you are happy at your current job, you're doing good work, you're getting paid a good salary, another job pops up and you think, that might be an interesting job. You know what? There's no harm. You don't have to tell your current company anything. You apply for that job, you get an interview. Here's what could happen. You could get experience interviewing, which everybody needs. Honestly, the more practice you have interviewing, the better you'll be at it. But two, you might get a job offer that has a substantial pay raise for you. I've had that happen where I've said, I guess I'll take this job interview. I'm happy at my current job. I have nice benefits. It's close to my house, whatever. This job is great. Company B comes along and says, hey, would you, a recruiter or something, or you see something online, you apply for it, and maybe you get that interview. You take that interview and who knows, maybe you'll get a pay bump. Companies are not loyal to you. There are companies that will be loyal to you, but as a blanket statement, I think, for a long time, people have been like really loyal to where they work. And I just think that you got to look out for you sometimes in terms of like where you're looking. And if you get that job offer and it's a good job offer and it's a good everything, and you don't want to make that jump, you don't have to make that jump. Decide when you have all the cards on the table. Yeah. Don't make a decision beforehand. Beautiful. Well, that is our tips that we had there.
I think it was 13. I added one halfway, but I removed one. So I think we're at around 13. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these tips and if you have anything to add as well, because again, it's great to get other tips from other people. A lot of people are way smarter than Scott and I, especially like we do a lot of these potlucks. And often Scott and I will get off the potluck and be like, damn, that person was really smart. Who's the guy from Tory?
Talk about supper clubs. I swapped potluck and supper club, and now we're both swapping it. Yeah, sorry about that.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, it's my fault. Yeah,
we had Daniel on from Tory, and this happens fairly often where we hang up and go, man, what a thinker. You know?
Yeah.
What a great approach to life. I've never thought about any of that stuff in that way. And it's just so great to hear other people's opinions on these things. So tweet us at SyntaxFM or wherever you like. Send us your thoughts. We love to hear it.
Yeah. Sick. Cool. Well, now's the part of the show where we get into sick picks and shameless plugs. I got a sick pick that I've sick picked today, I sick picked before. Man, this is the flub episode is what it is. I picked these glasses, and I had a comment on one of the videos recently, and it was like, Scott, that glass is great. Where did you get it? So I figured I would sick pick this again because these glasses, they're thick, they're strong. I break a lot of glasses. I'm the clumsiest person you'll meet, and I have not broken a single one of these glasses. You can guarantee if you can break it, I've broken it. That's for sure. So these things are really good. Maybe my wife broke one, but I have not.
It looks like a pop can. My wife got me some for Christmas after you sick picked it, and it has a good mouth feel.
Good mouthfeel, and it has the lip that goes in, and it has a nice little like rounded edge to it. And so like you can fill this bad boy right to the top, and you're gonna get spillage, man. And guess what? They're cheap. They're $14 for 6 of them, or $14 for 4. Yeah, $14 for 4, or $32 for 6 of them. And like $32, you got 6 of them. That's enough to have for the house and whatever. Yeah. Yeah, I use these things.
A craft brewery in your house.
Yeah, I use these things for literally everything. They're my daily drinking glass, and a big fan.
I'm going to sick pick another OXO product. So I sick picked the salt and pepper grinders from OXO last week. I'm going to sick pick the OXO whisk, which is, I've had many a whisks in my life, and I never realized that there was a good whisk, you know? And I'm usually the type of person to have opinions on like kitchen products. I want like the best, and I have thoughts about everything. And a whisk is not something I ever thought I would get into, but turns out OXO makes a amazing whisk. We've had ours we have an OXO one at the cottage, and every time I go to the cottage, I go, we need to get one of these for home. This is way better than the crappy one we have. It's just, it's a good whisk. I don't know how to describe a good whisk. It just does a good job at whisking.
Which whisk is it? Because I see several.
The 11-inch balloon whisk.
Oh, the balloon.
It's we also got a whisk from my sister for Christmas. Let me find out what it's called. We'll pause it.
I have this whisk. I did not
know
you?
This.
Yes.
Is it whiskey business?
It's whiskey business. No, it's not. It's the opposite of whiskey business. It is very solid. I have not had any. Although, you know, whisking is one of those things that can lead to some mess, you know. Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm a pro whisker. I never have any mess. So my sister also gave me a Danish whisk for Christmas, and we also like that, especially for like things where a normal whisk gets like stuck.
It's weird.
It's a really weird. You just got to Google right now. Danish
this thing is
whisk.
Weird.
It's kind of like a weird, but like it's from the Danes, right? Like, have they ever given us anything that we didn't like?
That's a great question.
So that if you're looking for a Christmas gift for someone who's like likes kitchen stuff, a Danish whisk is also a good call.
I see one of these in my future at some point. They're kind of cool.
Yeah, if you're doing like doughs or batters or things where it always gets stuck in the middle of the whisk, you need a Danish whisk.
Yeah. All right. I get that. I can see the benefit there. All right. Well, I'm going to shamelessly plug the YouTube channel for Syntax. We release these shows on video now. And not only that, CJ's putting out some insanely high quality stuff.
Yeah,
he just released a video, the recording of this. Create your own Next.js starter template. And the thing I really appreciate about CJ's videos is that nobody gets in depth or gets to the details or gets to the real stuff like CJ. You know what? So many YouTube videos on any given topic are just surface level, and I don't want to say garbage, but they're just the docs regurgitated. And that's not what CJ's doing. He's using and he's finding the edges. Yeah,
he's in the Discords asking questions. Often he'll be like, "Hey, I'm not done the video yet because they have to push a change to the entire library."
Exactly.
Because he like hit an issue with something, and then like, "Oh yeah, maybe that doesn't make sense," and they fix it. So yeah, he goes deep, man.
Yeah, for sure. And so not only do you see every, podcast that we do here, but you also get a ton of awesome videos like that from CJ. So check it out, youtube.com/syntaxfm. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will catch you later. Peace.